Hello, and welcome to the Real Estate and Business Success Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Jimmerson, your Southeast Alabama luxury realtor with first class real estate wiregrass. In this podcast, we're diving deep into the intersection of real estate and business to uncover what makes successful entrepreneurs tick. Each week, I'll be interviewing top business owners and investors from the Wiregrass region and beyond, exploring how they've achieved enduring success and how their strategies can apply to both real estate and other industries. Whether you're a real estate professional or a business enthusiast, get ready to gain valuable insights, discover new strategies, and elevate your own success. Let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to the Real Estate and Business Success Podcast. Thank you for tuning in today, whether you're listening in or watching the video on my YouTube channel, Wiregrass Veteran Realtor. Today, I have with me Scott Matthews, founder of Invest Kodiak and real estate investor. Thanks for being on the show today, Scott.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, heck yeah, dude. So tell us about your experience and background in real estate.
Yeah, so I started as a real estate agent coming out of college. I knew I wanted to be in real estate. I wanted to be investing, and I had no money. So I was like, okay, well, I can't invest in properties yet. I don't know what I'm doing. So I got my license. I'm in Maryland, actually, and I realized I wasn't very good at it. I didn't like chasing buyers around. I wasn't really sure what I was doing, kind of just dragging my feet. And then I ended up moving down to Louisiana and working for like a mentor, more or less, about flipping houses and investing in rental properties and everything like that. I realized I was a numbers guy. Like I wanted to understand like what made a deal. I didn't really care about the paint colors and all that stuff, but if it was a deal, it was a deal. It would sell and someone would buy it. And so I kept my license. I still have it to this day. I still do some traditional real estate transactions, but for the most part, everything I do is investment side of things. We do a ton of marketing. We do a lot of wholesaling. I say we dispo probably 80% of our properties through assignment of contracts and double closes and stuff like that. And the other 20 are properties that we keep for our portfolio, or we actually rehab them and then sell them to an end user. So, and then we kind of moved from single family stuff to mid-sized multifamily. We acquired some of them ourselves and kept them in our portfolio. And then we actually wholesaled a few of them that were in like the 50 to 60 unit range. We found that's like kind of the sweet spot in terms of multifamily. We've done some commercial stuff, but for the most part, we're primarily on the residential side of things.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's kind of my path too. Like I mentioned to you earlier, I'm still a realtor myself. And the whole reason I got into this was to eventually invest. And I think it's great that we both have our license because I'm sure you're seeing this, but there's already states now that require you to have a license to be able to wholesale. And that's kind of where the wholesaling world is going, especially with all the different wholesalers I was taught to throughout the country as they're realizing you're going to have a license eventually. So you're already in a good place. You're ahead of the game by having your license for sure. What would you say is the best way to start out in real estate investing?
Honestly, I don't think I could have done it without having someone who was already doing it. Having a mentor, it really just it cuts the learning curve, whether you pay for a coach or you go work for someone for free or for nothing's for free. But, if you go work someone and try to learn, I really think that's the best way to get started. You do need money. There's so many people online that's just like, you don't need any money to do this. And I guess if you're just raising a bunch of people's money to buy a deal, that's fine. You get a piece of it. I get that. But before I would take on anybody else's money, for one, I had to have it myself. And two, I'm not going to invest in a deal or tell someone to invest in a deal if I'm not willing to put money into the deal as well. At least that's how my philosophy has been. I've always worried about taking other people's money. So if you're getting started, I would say start with a small deal and probably flip it, right? I don't think starting with a rental property is the best thing to do unless you have a high paying job, because rental properties are not going to really get you anywhere quickly, right? They're long-term investments, they're savings accounts at best. And obviously there's a ton of benefits and a ton of reasons to have them, but, and I do have them myself, but you got to make money first. So if you're in real estate, whether you're a real estate agent, a wholesaler, or a flipper, you have to be making money, at least in the residential world. Now, if you step into large multifamilies and stuff like that, it's a different beast. It's not really my game. You don't have to flip things there. You can utilize refinance and stuff like that. But even then, if you're going to be taken seriously by any seller or any broker or anything like that, you do have to have money, right? You have to have some skin in the game.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is that's what was on my mind is having skin in the game. I love that. That's how you went about it. You wanted to make sure that you knew what you were doing, what you were talking about, and that you were confident enough to take somebody else's money. You probably could have talked somebody into giving their money to you in the beginning, but you wanted to have that experience and that knowledge and have skin in the game. Investors, private money, hard lenders definitely want to see that you have skin in the game. Definitely makes them feel a whole lot better about giving you money instead of just somebody they don't know that's asking for money and hoping that they know what they're doing. And I think what you said in the beginning is the most important thing is to have a mentor, a coach, whether you're able to find somebody that will just take you in or you pay for one. I was listening to a podcast earlier today. I'll shoot over to you and leave in the show notes for everybody else to go listen to. But it was on the Wealthy Way. Ryan, I can't say his last name, Panada. Yeah, he was interviewing an attorney who's built $1 billion investment management firm through real estate. But that was what they talked about is everybody's always like, man, where should I invest my money? Where should I invest my money at? Whether it's in general or all the different avenues in real estate. And they were like, and this hits home so well. I know you'll resonate with this too, is you should invest in yourself first. Like
Yeah.
every dollar should be invested into you first, meaning find a mentor, find a coach that's, where you want to go, where you want to be at, and learn from them, and they'll help get you there. Mm.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think the most daunting thing for anyone who's just starting is it's a long process. Like this isn't like you're not going to wake up tomorrow and be like, I figured it out and I'm rich. Like it's a long ramp, but it's rewarding and it's proven to get you to a financial freedom if you just keep heading down the right path. And like you said, like everyone's got to start somewhere. And investing in yourself it takes time. It takes time to do those things, but it does pay off. And one day you look up and you're like, I don't need to work anymore. That's the goal. And then you can do
Yeah,
whatever you want. You can work on anything you want. But if you don't have those things in place, then you're constantly having to bring income in just to survive. And it's a tough place to be. It's the tough place to get anything productive actually done.
I think that's where a majority of Americans are right now. They're in that tough place, especially with inflation. I'm sure some people are like, "Oh man, that would change my life, and that this is a lot of money." But really, like the further you get up the ladder, you realize with inflation and the way the economy is right now that $100,000 used to be a lot, and it's really not anymore. And I'm sure somebody listening in that's not making that much is going to be like, "Oh, that it definitely." I mean, yeah, it's nice, but it's not what it used to be, right? $1 million is not what it used to be. When you start talking about 10 million or 100 million, you're definitely things are changing. I mean, yeah, things are changing with $1 million. I'm just saying that it's not what you think it is because with more money it becomes more expenses too, as well. That's what a lot of people don't realize. And you mentioned how long it takes. I keep seeing that common theme where it seems like 5 years is the goal. If
Yeah.
anybody listening in right now, I know that sounds like a long time, but honestly, it'll fly by. And just think about the last 5 years that you spent. What'd you do during that time? It's really not that long of a time, but it can seem like that when you're first getting started. I mean, you can probably do something sooner, right? That's always the goal is to get done something done sooner, but it just seems to be a common theme. I guess just the way the economics of it and the logistics work out in your first year. You're trying to figure it all out. You're drinking from a fire hose. You're hopefully implementing some systems and processes. And then the second year, you're probably still implementing some systems and processes or fine tuning those. And it's really like that third year where things start to kind of start accelerating and then you just keep growing from there. And that's what they say in business is if you can make it past 5 years, then you're probably going to be good.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like that has honestly been my path. I've been in real estate for 8, but it wasn't for the last like 4.5 years where I really stepped out that I actually noticed things were really working in my favor. And obviously, you have ups and downs the whole time. Like you have some really good times and some really low times, and you just got to keep showing up. Honestly, you just can't give up. And if you take risk, but you don't take risk, that's going to cripple you if something goes wrong, because invariably, like if it can go wrong, it will. Then the good thing about real estate is if you hold it long enough, it's really hard to lose. And in a lot of cases, even if you mess up severely, there's a good chance you're just going to break even and make your money back. And it starts with having money, right? Like I think that's where people get messed up is they get over leveraged and they start refinancing all their properties and basically putting debt on everything. And then the market changes and they get over in over their head a little bit. And I think that's when people get messed up, or they realize success doing something and then think to get to the next level, they need to change what they're doing. And they start doing bigger things that they weren't ready for. And I've been guilty of that myself, trying to get to the next level and then forgetting what kind of got you to the dance was a big thing.
Yeah, I've seen that with a friend of mine, and if you happen to listen to this, man, not saying anything, but he grew too fast. I felt like he had a really good company going on. I don't know all the details, but it just seemed like he grew too fast, and the business just tanked and went upside. So there is a problem with trying to scale too fast and doing, like you said, doing things that are not where you need to be at right now. So just having that patience to persevere through the tough times and just giving it a little bit of time for things to kind of marinate so that way you will be ready for the next steps. And you know, one of the biggest things that you said is just never quitting. I was just talking about that earlier. That's why I've gotten where I'm at too as well, or any successful, person or entrepreneur, real estate investor, business owner, is that they never quit, right? Going back to saying that if you can make it past 5 years, you're going to be good, but you got to get there, right? And most people quit, they fall short, they walk away. It's like that picture of I don't know if you've ever seen it, of the two miners, right? Top and bottom, and they're
Yeah.
both digging for the diamonds. And there's the one who's like that far away from inches from getting to the pile of diamonds, and he turns around and walks away. Little does he know, if he just would have hit it one more time, that he would have had it. He would have got there first. But the other one's like even further away, but you can just tell he's determined. He's not going to stop until he gets there or never finds something. I think that's the biggest thing. It's like I do business funding as well, real estate funding, and I got a guy that I just talked to recently. He's been trying to get the funds he needs for his business. I think it's a really great business, but it's just tough to get going and get started depending on your situation. And he just gave up. And I tried to kind of plead with him. I'm like, man, you've taken all this time. I'm like, you're right there. I was like, this is what business is like. I'm like, just if I would have got a hold of you sooner, we probably would have gotten you the funding you needed. But we just now met. And I'm like, dude, don't give up. And he's just like, oh, I'm tired of the stress of all this. I'm just going to figure something else out. And I'm just like, no, man. Just like, let me work with you a little bit longer. We just met. It's going to happen. And he's just given up.
Yeah, no, I hate to see that. I don't, at the same vein, I think it's the easiest time it's ever been for someone to go
Oh my God.
and make
Yeah.
their own way, opposed to even 20 years ago, 10 years ago. But I also believe that it's not for everybody. I think
True.
you need to have a certain personality. Like, not saying you can't teach yourself that personality if you don't inherently have it, but at least for me, like whether something works out or doesn't, I don't really even have it in my mind that I would go do something else. Like there is no, like, I'm not saying real estate is my end all be all, but being an entrepreneur and being on my own and making my own way, like there is no plan B. Like there's never been, like, and that's, I don't know, naive. I don't know, but it's worked up to this point. And like, I think if you're always having something in your back of your mind that like, oh, I could just fall back on this, fall back on this. The second it gets hard, it's so easy to fall back on. Like I've never had anything to fall back on. Like I've never had another career. I've never had, I had a business degree in college. Like I could go work for a company, I guess, but outside of that, like there is no plan B. And I don't think you can have one once you decide to step out on your own. I just don't believe you can.
No, you're 100% right. Because just like you said, if you've got that fallback plan, then it is going to be easy once it gets hard. And if you've never owned a business, if you've never run any kind of business or been in real estate investing or anything, you'll find out that it's always hard. Things will get easier later on, but then you just have bigger problems too. So it's
Yeah.
always going to be hard. There's always going to be a point in time in the period. I know all these people out there that people probably watch and see, and they make it sound like it's so easy, or like it gets easier later on. And to an extent, it does, right? But you're still gonna have those hard times to get through, and so you can't have a plan B. Like you said, you got to burn the boats, and that's been my thing ever since I started. When I became a realtor 7 years ago, I had it in my mind, like from day one. I already had a 5, 10, 15 year plan, and I was like, I don't care what it takes. This is what I'm going to do. And I've gone through some tough times, and I just kept pushing through that. And that's what you got to do in general in business or whatever it is you're going to do. You got to push through that.
Yeah.
So switching gears back to real estate again, like how do you find great deals?
Well, we do a lot of marketing. We don't really buy anything on the market, a handful of things now because things have been sitting. So we've been a little bit more active going after properties that are sitting on the market for a long period of time. Because in the last couple of years, it hasn't been like that. Things were flying off the shelves. So we were having to get deals direct from seller, which we still do. I find that if you are direct to seller, you will get a better price, obviously, but more importantly, right now is we're able to negotiate better terms. So we're doing a lot of owner financing stuff, whether it's subject to deals taking over people's existing mortgages or if the property's paid off, paying them monthly opposed to having to involve a bank. And I find that the best deals right now have been our ability to negotiate terms with sellers, not just prices. And that goes for wholesale deals and that goes for deals that we keep ourselves because you can put less money down, get better interest rates, and especially if you plan to hold it, you can maybe give the seller their price, but with better terms, it just becomes so much more attractive.
Yeah, I love that so much, especially subject to, and just real estate investing in general, because a lot of people might think that it's about the money. And I mean, yeah, who doesn't want to make money? But honestly, we're out there truly helping people. And a lot of people may not see it that way, right? They just think salesperson's just a nasty salesperson. But in the reality, it's like we're truly out, like it's going to be a win for both of us. I'm sure there's some people out there that are just all about themselves or what and whatnot. But at the end of the day, a deal doesn't make sense unless it's a win on both sides.
Yeah, and it won't get done whether it's with me or with any other investor. Like if an investor has to take over the property because of the condition or the time frame or whatever, it has to make sense. And sellers understand that. And we make that completely transparent. Hey, look, like I can't pay this price because I will lose money, right? I will not be able to do this deal. So if you want to try to go out and get that price, you can absolutely try to go put it on the market and go through that process. And if you get it, awesome. But a lot of people the reason why this business works and buying properties at a discount directly to seller works because a lot of sellers they value something other than just price, right? There's obviously sellers that value the price over everything, but some sellers don't. Some sellers value time, convenience, headache. A lot of people have owned these properties for so long, they've made their money, right? If you could just take it off their hands for a reasonable price, they're a lot of times they're happy that you're making something. And they all know that. They know you're not doing this for free, right? Like so for someone to think that a salesman is just stealing properties, people know what they're doing. Like they know what they're selling their properties for. And a lot of times they're okay with that. And if they're not, they don't sell it. Right. And we move on to the next property till we find the right one. So yeah, you got to kind of go out and create a good deal, in my opinion. You can't just they won't just come to you.
No, for sure. I just love how we can help people, especially in certain situations. Again, it's like we're not there to take advantage of them. It's, somebody that may be in like pre-foreclosure, about to actually go into foreclosure that's not in a good situation where you can't put it on the market and sell it because the equity is not there. But if you can sub to it, take over those payments, get them out of a bad situation and maybe even give them some money to move on to their next stage in life, that's a win. And now they don't have a foreclosure on their credit and again, everybody wins. So what do you look out for in a great deal?
I mean, to basically go back to what you're just saying, we're doing one just like that right now. The person is $10,000 in behind in arrearages. And basically what we're doing, and they had it on the market and it didn't sell. They were trying to sell it. They kept lowering the price and we knew that they needed to sell it, but we just were waiting. And they basically said, look, I need to sell it. It's coming off the market. It's not selling. So we offered subject to, and we're going to clear up the mortgage and actually still put 12 grand in their pocket on top of it. So
Uh,
they're going to make money and then we'll take over the property from there.
That's awesome. Yeah. So
Yeah.
for any sellers that might happen to be listening to this or watching the video on my YouTube channel, if you're about to get into a situation, whether it be pre-foreclosure or maybe some tax liens or something like that, don't be embarrassed. Don't be scared. Reach out to a Scott or an investor, and they can probably help you get out of that situation. And more importantly, don't wait too long. That's the only time that we can't help. I've seen that happen, and
Yeah.
I get it, right? It is an embarrassing time. It's not easy to deal with that. Most people just kind of shove it away and hope that something will change, but it's not going to unless you do something about it. And then to any realtors listening or watching in, if you've got a listing like that, understand there are other options out there. A lot of realtors think the same thing about investors, or they think that they're not going to get paid, but there's always a win, right? Instead of a win, it could be a win where you as the realtor gets paid as well, and you offload this property and you help your seller, you help your client instead of letting it go expired or them go into foreclosure or whatever the case may be. Because that's what the case is on a lot of homes, like I was telling you earlier before we started. And I've got a listing right now that I'm trying to work on subject to him because we've been under contract twice already. It's fallen apart. But the roof needs to be replaced. The HVAC will eventually need to be replaced, but it's fallen apart because of those items. Even though the last deal was a cash deal, they offered $30,000 less because they knew about that. But then they had the home inspection and they were like, we're going to change our minds. They just backed out, even though they made a $30,000 less offer and knew that those were issues beforehand. But I think subject to is going to be the best situation for them to get out of that property.
Yeah, and subject to is a great thing for investors. It can be good for sellers. It does come with risk, though. I
Yep.
don't, it does come with risk, and the fact that the mortgage company could call the loan, I think it's percentage wise unlikely. But every seller and every investor needs to know that. Like if you're going into it and you're offering this to sellers, like you got to let them know, like, hey, look, the mortgage company doesn't want us paying the mortgage on your behalf. Will they continue to collect money? I'm sure they will. But if you kind of notify them or let them know that it was sold, they have an obligation to call that loan, right? So I've seen it happen before, but it is rare, but I have seen it. And, sometimes extenuating circumstances come up and, you just want to make sure as on the investor side and even for the seller's sake, you want to make sure you still have some equity, because they'll give you 60 days to refinance it, but if you don't have the equity in the deal, it's ultimately going to fall back on the seller. So you really do have to be ready for that at the very least. It's not just like take over the mortgage and everything's great. You do have to think about it and make the seller aware that that is a possibility.
Yeah, 100%, man. It's about being transparent with everything. And, there's a risk in investing in whatever. It doesn't matter whether it's real estate, stocks, whatever you invest in, there's always going to be a risk. And there's definitely ways, which I know you know, of how to properly structure and set that up to minimize the risk as much as possible. And that's what it's really all about, is making sure that you know how to structure and set things up to minimize risk, but there's still going to be some percentage of a risk there in any deal that
Always.
you do, no matter which way, what strategy you go into it with or out of it with. So tell me more about Invest Kodiak. What's that about?
Yeah, so basically that's our investment company. We are, we wholesale properties. Like I said, that's about 80% of our strategy. So we're constantly marketing. We're in a few states, basically Louisiana. We do stuff in the Northeast. We were doing stuff out in Arizona, Tennessee, and Nevada, but we decided that kind of with the way the market is to be more consistent, we want to be experts in our market and understand exactly if we lock a property up, we know 90% of the time that this property is going to sell and it's going to sell for this range, right? I feel like if you're virtually wholesaling and you're doing stuff across the country and you're just shotgun approach, there's a good chance that you're going to pick up deals that you don't really understand. And I find that to be a detriment. You can sell deals, across the country without ever going to see them. We've done it, but I think the more sustainable route for us has been understanding our market and really like honing in on exactly where we're marketing to, because marketing is expensive, right? Like we spend thousands of dollars every month just to get the number of leads coming into our system, which is about, anywhere from 30 to 35 leads a day comes into our system. And, we scrub through them and then try to find a good deal, and every single day, our goal is to sign a contract a day. That's our goal. So.
Yeah, I love that, man. So you focus on your area. I'm a big quote guy. So what that made me think about is the riches are in the niches, right? You're focusing on the one thing, you're becoming that area expert where people can know, like, and trust you and become known as that person to go to in your area over somebody that, like you said, is doing it virtually all across the country. They probably want to, come to you, or you've already talked to them first before that other person gets out to them.
Yeah.
You have that confidence in knowing, like you said, that it's going to sell. You're not worrying, waiting, wondering. if it's going to sell and hoping on a prayer, like exactly
Yeah,
the no.
it's like scratching the surface versus going deep. I think it works. Like both models work, but I've never seen a successful wholesale company that isn't deep in a couple markets. The ones that are doing more like the shotgun approach, it's just not sustainable. Like you just can't guarantee that you're going to get a certain number of deals for your ad spend. Like you have to, if you're going to build a business, you have to be able to understand if I'm going to spend this amount of money, I'm going to hopefully get this amount back in return at the minimum. And if you can't bank on that, then there's a good chance that your business is not going to be a business.
Yeah, inch wide, mile deep. So
Exactly.
you've mentioned marketing several times. How important would you say that's, for a business in general?
That's everything, man. In our business, especially, if you stop marketing, we're dead. You know, that's it. There is no business without marketing for us. Obviously there's companies out there that, you can operate off of word of mouth and stuff like that and referrals. But in our business, we do a deal with a seller. It's usually a one-off transaction. They don't own multiple properties and stuff like that. And we might get referred business once in a while, but for the most part, it's, we have to go out and find the deals. A lot of cold solicit, tens of thousands of records every month, have to be solicited in order to just get the types of deals that we're looking for.
Yeah, what I just heard out of that is something I've talked about a lot lately is, if you're listening into this, you need to understand that it's all about volume too on anything, whatever, whether you're trying to get leads or you're trying to recruit people. Sometimes it just takes a lot of volume before you find the right ones, the ones that are going to fit or the ones that are actually going to work out. I mean, you can only go so far with organic marketing and traffic. That can definitely get you started if you don't have the money to pay for that right away until you can get some money coming in, but you're definitely going to have to pay for marketing later on if you want to scale up, right? If you want to bring in more volume and more money into the business.
Yeah, I mean, you could start lean in this business, like you absolutely can, but you're going to spend money regardless. It doesn't happen for free. But at a certain point, the margins are high enough on this business where if you don't just spend the money and you just invest it back in, you can actually keep things sustainable without having to, you know, grind your head into the wall every single day trying to find a deal. The deals will come if you're spending the money, right? You have to spend it.
Yeah, you just read my mind. That's what I was going to say is reinvesting back into the business. A lot of people, it's not talked about a lot. You get into business and you start making more money than you've ever made and you want to go spend it. But the first thing you better do is take some of that money and reinvest it back into the business to, one, keep it going, and then two, grow and scale it if you want to.
Yeah, because you get to a certain point of making money and you don't want to do the things that you were originally, you know, okay with doing when you first got started, right? You have a level of comfort where bills are paid and, you don't want to cold call 500 people today anymore, right? It's just not a thing. So you can pay people to do it. But if you spend your money, you don't have it, then you can't. And you got to keep doing what kind of got you there. So, there is tiers to that thing. And you said, 5 years is like 5 years is absolutely a great benchmark if you are continue to invest in yourself, invest in the business, and invest in assets, right? You could just make money for 5 years and look up and be like, I made a bunch of money, but I have, you know, a bunch of cars that aren't worth anything. I don't own any
Nothing to
real
show
estate,
for it.
nothing to show for it. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're talking about leverage there a little bit. That's the other thing is not just investing into marketing, but like you said, when you first start a business, you're wearing all the hats, as they
Yeah.
say, because you have to. But when you start bringing that money in, reinvest in multiple ways, whether it's marketing or, hiring out for other jobs. So that way you don't have to do it. Because otherwise, again, just like with the marketing, you can do organic, but if you don't pay for it, you're going to hit a ceiling. You're going to hit a cap. Same thing with leveraging yourself out by having somebody else in the business, whether you hire VAs or you hire an actual, another human here in the country to do that work so that way you can focus on what you're good at, what you're passionate about, and that way eventually you can work on the business instead of in the business.
Yeah, which is the hardest thing to do, honestly. It's hard to get out of the grind um, as a business owner and work on strategy because invariably what happens is you have to rely on other people to do what you were doing. And, in a lot of cases, they won't do it as well as you were in the beginning, and your business will slow down. And, you have to kind of trust and have faith that other people can do it. And eventually if you pick the right people and you go to the right people and you retain the right people, eventually that will work out. But that's probably the hardest next step, is going from like 1 million to 3, and then from 3 to 10, like those, like getting to the million, you could do it by yourself, but getting past that on a yearly basis is, it requires other people in a lot of cases.
Yeah, what's that quote, that saying? If you want to go fast, go along, but if you want to go far, go together.
Yeah, for
You know,
sure.
and maybe that's not, if you're listening in, maybe that's not somewhere you want to go. If you just want to reach the million, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's the beautiful thing about success, is it's everybody's own definition of where they want to be at. So it just depends on what you want to do, where you want to go, what your goals are, to what you need to do to be able to get there.
So
How can people reach out to you? How can-
I have well, I guess you can find me on Instagram. It's Scott A. Matthews, or I'm on YouTube, Scott A. Matthews. Two T's in Matthews. Everyone puts one T. And yeah, I post some videos on YouTube, starting to do like a vlog series. So like just day in the life, follow me around. And so we'll continue to do that. Try to get one of those out every week or every 2 weeks, something like that.
Awesome. Heck yeah, man. So if you're listening in, watching in, you want to learn more about real estate investing, wholesaling, and in general, go Google Scott Matthews or hit him up on his Instagram or YouTube, where you can learn a little bit about this. But I appreciate having you on the show today, Scott. And thanks everybody for listening or watching in. And make sure you check out the show notes or description and the YouTube video on my YouTube channel, Wiregrass Veteran Realtor, for links to different resources on how to start, manage, scale, and grow a business, as well as resources for real estate agents and investors. And we'll see you guys on the next episode.